Howdy folks, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're enjoying the content from CP Plus. By the time this goes live, the show has probably already finished. I'm out of the show site now, and I just wanted to talk to you about a product that I got time to have hands-on with a couple of times, but I just didn't have time to talk about at the time, and it was also really noisy. I wanted to talk today about the Sony 400 to 800mm f6.3 to f8 lens. I do have some notes here to remind myself, but essentially this is a super telephoto zoom, the longest that Sony have brought out. And I have to say 400 to 800 is a phenomenal focal length. I'm going to do a similar video to this talking about the new Sigma 300 to 600, which by virtue of its fixed f4.0 aperture makes it quite a different beast to this one. But I think both of them are great for sports and safari, wildlife, that kind of thing. But this one in particular may be just ideal for birds and safari wildlife. I think 400 to 800 is just supreme, as I have a video coming soon about my recent trip to Tanzania and Uganda. For that, I was using the 400 Nikon lens that has the teleconverter built in, so 400 and 560, as well as the 800mm PF lens. And those two were the overwhelming bulk of my shots, and that's exactly this range, 400 to 800. Now, get a couple of things out of the way. First of all, this is a G lens, it's not a G Master lens, so they're not touting it to have the best build quality and the best optics, but it is coming in for that kind of a reach at a surprisingly compact size. Now, I would suggest, if you haven't, to watch this and the Sigma 300 to 600 video one after the other. I'll do the same in that video, and I'll have it linked below, because I think there's an interesting distinction here. This comes in at a weight of 2.5 kilos. It's got 105mm front filter thread, so that gives you a little bit of an idea of the size, and seeing some footage that I'll show you here of me shooting with it. It is right in that sweet spot of, in my opinion, being hand-holdable for the day. I wouldn't bother taking a monopod along, but for some people, 2.5 kilos is gonna make it a monopod job. So that's something I think we have to give Sony credit for. Not everyone cares about this, but one of the really common comments I get from people is that I thought mirrorless was about being smaller and lighter, and then why are we getting all of these gigantic lenses? Our delivery man is coming back through, which I think is a really fair point. But Sony are really making an effort to get things small and light. So at the same time I was looking at this one, I checked out their new 16mm 1.8 G lens, and it's ridiculous. It seems like an APS-C lens. It's so small, it's so light, and for content creators, it's gonna just do the job. So I do think Sony are kind of hitting the mark of what a lot of people want. It's great that they have so many lenses so they can do this. So they have the 600 f4 for people who really want the biggest and the best. And then for people who want the flexibility of a zoom and want something more affordable and want something that's hand-holdable and easier to travel with, then you have this, and it is a phenomenal range. Now, this is coming in at $2,900. You can see the details over at B&H Photo. I'll link out to the full specifications there. Interesting that whilst this is at its fastest, 6.3 aperture at 400mm and f8 at 800mm, the minimum aperture also varies. So you can stop down to f36 at 400mm, sorry, and f45 when you're out at 800mm. So if you really wanted to get everything from the elephant, the whole savannah, into infinity at 800mm, you can stop down to f45. Overall on this one, I do think it's a really nicely balanced kit, and it's just interesting that this at 2.5 kilos is not that much lighter than the Sigma, but I think a big consensus, or a lot of people, are saying it's unhand-holdable. So it seems like 2.5 to 3 kilos is people's sweet spot, and 3+ is no longer. But, well, see the Sigma video for that. I think maybe people have just gotten a bit soft over the past couple of years. In terms of the aperture, I would say it's kind of slow, but mirrorless cameras can just make it do. You know, f8 is not a big deal. And Canon obviously have their super long lenses with a really slow aperture, and they're pretty popular. There is one thing, however. I was shooting at the Sony booth where it was really well lit, and to get a decent shutter speed to be hand holding, I was still getting I only got a few sample shots with it because what's the point at a show? I was still up at 4, 6, 8,000 ISO, okay? And that's in an insanely well lit booth. If you're out in direct sunlight, yes, you're gonna have more light, but so often you're actually shooting through cloud cover, through the canopy of trees, that kind of thing. You might find yourself rapidly getting up to 32,000 ISO or that kind of thing in the field. Keep in mind that f8 compared to say f4 is a quarter of the amount of light. So if you were shooting at, with an f4 lens and shooting at ISO, let's say 3200, on this you'd be shooting at 12,800 because of the f8 aperture. So it is something to keep in mind. Yes, there's noise reduction software and so on, but apart from the bokeh issue, you do need to think about that. And the last thing you want to do when you're shooting wildlife or birds is be shooting at too slow of a shutter speed, trying to keep your ISO low and then destroying the images with wobble. Thank you to the Sony team for welcoming me and giving me a tour around the booth. Just mention this briefly, in a very un-Japanese move where nobody likes to make a scene, nobody likes to be pushy or rude. As soon as you got your time with this lens, they hit a little kitchen timer to let you know you had 5 minutes. And as soon as the bell went off, you're expected to GDFO, which I found quite funny, but having later seen the Sigma booth where there was no such time control, it was very dreary waiting around for people who clearly weren't using the camera anymore and were just chit-chatting and standing there, but the staff didn't want to be rude to ask them to move along. I think I probably waited 20 minutes with 2 of the cameras not really being used whilst the people were chatting to staff at Sigma, whereas Sony, I had to wait, I think, 30 minutes to get my number called to get a chance to have a look at the lens. But then I had 5 minutes of uninterrupted time and I knew exactly how much time I had, so it wasn't like I was keeping anyone waiting. Our delivery man is here for his second route. Let me know what you think of this lens. Is it something you would consider? And I'm gonna get out of this major alleyway. Thanks guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you haven't already, please do check out 1 Week in Sydney.